It's a win for all of the Afro-American players that have ever played the game of golf.
It's about history. Yes, sir! It's about improbable comebacks.
Probably had every right to die, but he was saved.
It's about missed opportunities.
I feel sorry for myself. I say, what a stupid I am.
It's about triumphs.
He was the ultimate American hero.
Feats that put golf on the world stage.
I knew that I was really witnessing a spectacle.
The moments we'll never forget.
It's the best feat that I've ever seen in sport. I don't care what you call it.
The moments that define the great game of golf. Join us as we count down Golf Digest's 10 defining moments. Hello, everyone. I'm Bill McAtee, and welcome to Golf Digest's 10 defining moments. For years, Golf Digest magazine has helped us improve our own games. But today, the magazine celebrates the sport's rich, varied, and sometimes mystical history. In the next hour, we'll count down 10 moments that we believe truly define the game of golf. Golf Digest gathered a distinguished collection of writers, historians, and championship players and asked them to cast their votes for the game's ultimate defining moments. So here now some of the magazine's editorial staff and their take on just what makes a moment defining.
Among the staff of all of us at Golf Digest, we've debated all these defining moments. Is it a career? Is it one shot? Is it an incident? Is it a series of accomplishments?
It's hard to say what exactly is a moment. But to me, it's a defining moment if it's all you need to know about somebody.
When we think of the game of golf, that one of these things leaps out as being representative and etched and embodies what golf itself is.
We begin our countdown with a moment that defines the careers of 3 different players. It's a story about how a pencil and a scorecard can sometimes have more impact than a club and a ball. Golf is a precise and unforgiving game, regulated by a strict set of rules, with little room for compromise or compassion.
It's the only game in which the contestants are expected to enforce the rules upon themselves.
The leaderboard at the 1968 Masters was working overtime going into the final round. 11 players were jammed within 3 shots of the lead, including a colorful character from South America, Roberto Di Vincenzo.
He's one of the great players in the world. They're strong as a bull, big shoulders, hit the ball a mile, charmed everyone.
This beautiful Easter Sunday began with a bang for Di Vincenzo. The Argentinian got the perfect present on his 45th birthday, an eagle on the first hole.
I am ready to go and to play and to win.
But he couldn't shake tour veteran Bob Goalby, who was looking for his first major. When Di Vincenzo curled in a birdie putt on 17, Goalby matched it almost simultaneously with an eagle on 15. But when Di Vincenzo missed this par putt at 18, it looked as if the Argentinian and the American would have to settle their differences with an 18-hole playoff on Monday.
I made a 4-footer on the last hole, thinking I was going to tie and have a playoff the next day. I made a good putt.
Millions on television saw Di Vincenzo make a 3 on 17, but they weren't keeping his score. As is customary, Di Vincenzo's score was kept by his playing partner, Tommy Aaron, who wrote down a 4, not a 3.
He snatched the card, signed it quickly, and stormed away. My first reaction was, my gosh, he never even looked at his card.
And when I checked the scorecard, I never looked at 17 holes. Just I remembered 18, and I made a mistake.
I says, look, Roberto, I'm sorry, but, you know, I put a 4 down, and unfortunately, you look at your card, and he just says, well, it's not your fault.
Because Di Vincenzo missed the mistake and signed his scorecard, the higher score had to stand. Unfortunately, the Masters was not decided on the course, but by a technicality. Goalby won his first and only major at the scorer's table.
It's a very, very unfortunate thing that I would do anything to have not happen.
I'd be angry to myself, but not to anyone. I feel sorry for myself. I say, what a stupid I am.
It was unfortunate for Roberto, very unfortunate. But it was equally unfortunate for me because I didn't get credit for winning the tournament after shooting pretty good golf.
There's no litigation to get around this. You're not going to call in a lawyer and say this is not the way we play, because these rules have been established forever. And this was kind of a Supreme Court confirmation that the rules apply.
The Masters 1968 is not finished yet. Someday maybe I play the playoff against Bob Goalby.
Stay with us as we continue the countdown of Golf Digest's 10 defining moments. Welcome back. Sports and hype are often synonymous. Many athletes have been touted as the next Jordan, Gretzky, or Ali, only to crumble under the weight of those expectations. Our next moment is about an athlete who arrived with the highest expectations and continues to exceed them. But this particular moment was about more than just golf. It changed the way millions of people looked at the game. Here now, number 9 on our countdown.
It was a win for all of the Afro-American players that have ever played the game of golf.
Tiger Woods was destined for greatness practically from birth. He was a creative genius with a club in his hand. But Tiger was not only blessed with talent, he was also supremely confident.
When I was very little and watching these events on the TV, I knew I could put myself there in position to win. I knew that, and I believed that.
The 1997 Masters was his first major as a professional. It was the major he wanted most, and it showed.
There was no bounds. There was no place that you could say, well, he won't do this. It was always he could do just about anything.
We did sense something was going to happen, and then as the week unfolded, it was just the start of the bombardment.
I played terrible my first 9 holes, but I got together, came home at 30, and really got rolling.
Tiger's remarkable length let him play a very different Augusta National.
He's more than a phenom. He's a prodigy. He's Mozart. And this is his coming out.
The 21-year-old became the youngest Masters champion in history, finishing a record 18 under par and winning by an unprecedented 12 shots. An emotional moment he was able to share with his father, who was told not even to come to Augusta because of a heart condition.
There it is, a win for the ages.
To have him there on 18 green, to hug him, because it meant so much for me, because in essence, he really wasn't supposed to be there. That's what made that tournament so much more special.
It was also a very special day for Lee Elder, who had been the first African-American to play at the Masters in 1975.
Almost every Afro-American that I seen that day was shedding tears. I know that I shed a few myself.
Everybody embraced Tiger for that. It was such a release to see that really the golf was capable of being a colorblind sport.
I should think it sowed the seed in his mind that, yes, I can go out and beat every darn record in this game. And that's certainly, I'm sure, one of his goals.
He grabs the public's imagination, and he has taken the game to another level, just like Arnold took it to another level.
The win at the 97 Masters was Tiger moving from a star to a superstar with enormous impact, enormous worldwide focus, and that gave him the ability to begin to change the sport as we know it.
Golf is certainly not a matter of life and death, but our next defining moment is about them both. Babe Zaharias was an all-round athlete who could always make you smile. Even while dealing with a devastating disease, she never stopped living. Her accomplishments and her courage are why we are celebrating the life and times of Babe Zaharias as we continue our countdown of Golf Digest's 10 defining moments.
Personally, I think Babe Zaharias was the greatest athlete of the 20th century, male or female.
Babe Zaharias did just about everything, and did it exceptionally well. From vaudeville to vault.
Winning to Babe was the most important thing in the world. She lived to beat somebody at something, at some game.
Babe Didrikson Zaharias was a two-time Olympic gold medalist in track and field, a baseball player, and one of the best female golfers of all time. She had charm and charisma, which made quite an impression on an aspiring young pro during a round at the Latrobe Country Club.
At 16 years old, I had the privilege of playing an exhibition with Babe, and I could say without equivocation that she was one of the most interesting ladies that I have ever met in my life. She wiggled her fanny and said to the crowd, "I'm going to loosen my girdle and let this one fly." And she got up there and hit the ball, and I was absolutely fascinated by her good humor and her ability to play the game of golf.
Despite not playing the game seriously until her early 20s, Babe was an immediate force on the course. Not only did Zaharias once win 17 amateur tournaments in a row, she was also a founding member of the LPGA.
Babe was the reason the LPGA could even start back in 1951. Every tour needs a star, and she was the only star, really, in women's golf.
But at the top of her game, in 1953, the Babe got devastating news. She was diagnosed with colon cancer.
She never thought that it was going to get the best of her. She was such an optimist and had such confidence in her body. She thought she was going to beat that.
Many thought her playing days were over, but she had one more incredible performance left. At the 1954 U.S. Open, Babe crushed the field by a record 12 shots in what would be her last major.
Coming from a hospital bed, basically, playing in the Women's Open, one would question why she was even there, and she not only won, but she basically lapped the field.
These reports were going out about that I never play championship or tournament golf again. And I laid in the bed and I says, "Please, God, let me play again." And he answered my prayer.
Cancer was just about the only thing Babe Zaharias couldn't conquer. One of the greatest athletes of the 20th century died just 2 years after her greatest victory. Babe Zaharias was just 45 years old. Golf Digest 10 Defining Moments will return after this. Welcome back. Golf is a game steeped in tradition. Our next defining moment is about one of the greatest traditions and how a single shot helped turn a small gathering of friends in a little town in Georgia into one of golf's most prestigious tournaments. Let's pick up our countdown at number 7.
I don't think they ever dreamed that the Masters was going to become what it has become.
After Bobby Jones retired from golf in 1930, his dream was to build a course in the South, a place where he could check his fame at the door and sneak in an occasional 18 holes.
He wanted a place that was his place, his refuge, that was near his home, where he and a group of friends, his friends, could come and be welcome and play a great golf course.
But from the start, during the Depression, Augusta National suffered financial hardship. So in 1934, Jones invited some of his friends to play in a tournament to try and raise the club's profile.
He knew that if the club could garner some attention through these players coming in there, that it would entice other people to join the club. He knew that that was really the secret to keeping it solvent.
The second Augusta National Invitational had a star-studded field, including Gene Sarazen, winner of 6 majors. But on Sunday, things looked hopeless for the Squire as he approached the par 5 15th. He was 3 shots behind the leader in the clubhouse.
Craig Wood is sitting in the clubhouse. He's got the tournament won, hands down.
A good drive left Sarazen a downhill 235-yard shot over the pond guarding the green. He pulled out his forward.
He was paired with Walter Hagen, and as he was about to hit the shot to the green, Hagen turned to him and said, "Come on, Gene, let's go. I got a date tonight. You know, Craig Wood's going to win the tournament." I don't know if Hagen ever got to his date.
Bobby Jones was one of only a handful of people who saw the ball bounce once and then roll into the cup for an improbable double eagle. There are no visual images of that remarkable two, but it was the shot heard round the world.
Your imagination is now part of the lore. Visualizing Sarazen on the fairway, talking to Hagen, hitting the ball.
Sarazen won a 36-hole playoff the following day, and the tournament had its identity as something special.
It brought the Masters to the forefront. It brought golf to the attention of the people in the world.
It's always been a shot of mythic proportions, and it's probably the all-time single greatest, most important shot made in the history of golf.
While the Squires shot was never captured on film, Arnold Palmer's entire career has been played out in front of the cameras. His performance at the 1960 U.S. Open epitomized why you could never take your eyes off Arnie, because anything was possible. He was bold. He was brash. He was blue-collar. To many, he was one of us. Arnold Palmer's swaggering style was a perfect match for golf's new partner, television.
Here was a guy who didn't look like a fancy country club guy. He looked like a steel worker, really, and people loved him.
Arnold Palmer was certainly the hit of the 1960 season, capturing his second green jacket in dramatic style by birdieing the last two holes. He was hot and had the U.S. Open in his sights. But he was facing some pretty tough competition. A 47-year-old Ben Hogan, who was making one last stand, and the new kid on the block, a 20-year-old amateur from Columbus, Ohio, who liked his odds.
Dad and I went to the tournament, and he says, "Hey, Jack," he said, "you see the odds in the tournament?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "You're 35 to 1. And I said, he says, "Do you want some of that?" I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Put 20 up." I said, "Put 20 bucks on me." He said, "You want to place in the show?" And I said, "No, no, 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 I'm going to win. Put it on there to win."
But it was Palmer who looked like the long shot, staring at a 7-shot deficit going into the final round. That would quickly change, thanks to a conversation over lunch with a couple of reporters, Dan Jenkins and the late Bob Drum.
He said, if I drive the first green, I'll make an eagle. Get me off to a good start. Maybe I can shoot 65, and 65 would be 280. Doesn't 280 always win the Open? And either Drum or I said, yeah, when Hogan shoots it.
And that, I guess, lit a fire and got me started in that last round when I drove the first green, which was the key to the whole thing.
As I walked off the green, I heard this cheer and the ball came rolling onto the green. I mean, what a prodigious drive that was.
It gave me the confidence that I needed to go on, and I just made a bunch of birdies real quick.
Both Hogan and Nicklaus made strong runs, but Arnie was able to hold off golf's past and its future. A par on the 18th sealed Arnie's classic charge and his second major championship that year. His celebration was pure Palmer, and to many, these images signify the beginning of the modern game.
And the way he did it sums up what I think is Arnold Palmer, and sums up why people can relate to Arnold Palmer and why they cheer for him even now.
He was the ultimate American hero. The important thing, of course, is that he won. He just didn't charge and lose. He won.
Obviously, there were moments that just missed making our top 10 list. One of them, the 1987 Ryder Cup matches at Muirfield Village. The American team was trying to avenge a disappointing defeat to Europe in 1985. The young and emerging European players were eager to prove that their victory was no fluke.
The atmosphere that week was fantastic. I thought some of those moments will remain with me forever.
After suffering their first loss in nearly 3 decades at the Belfry in 1985, The Americans were seeking revenge at Muirfield Village, a course built by U.S. Captain Jack Nicklaus. It wasn't going to be easy. The Europeans were led by some of golf's biggest names. Stars like Spain's Seve Ballesteros, Bernhard Langer of Germany, and Great Britain's Nick Faldo.
This was a fantastic opportunity to win for the first time on American soil, simple as that.
The Europeans played like they had no intention of handing back the cup. They stormed out to a commanding lead after the first 2 days of competition. Although the U.S. had 60 years of history on its side, it would take a miracle at Muirfield on the third and final day to regain the Ryder Cup.
When you're trying to win, you don't sit here and think, oh, we can't get it done. You think of ways to win.
Though the U.S. made a valiant Sunday charge, it was too little, too late.
It was just the right time, you know, to do it. It was a spectacular week, and a week that I'll never forget.
We had our chances at the end, and guys just didn't get it done, so it was tough week to lose.
Even American guys can say, hey, that wasn't that half bad. You know, okay, we lost, but fine. But what it did for the Ryder Cup, it's made it in quite a fantastic event.
It made the Ryder Cup what it is today, and the Ryder Cup today is one of the premier, impactful events in sports, period.
When we return, the continuation of our countdown of Golf Digest's 10 defining moments. Welcome back to our countdown of Golf Digest's 10 defining moments. The year is 1986, and one of the greatest players of all time is in a tournament that he has dominated so many times before. But now the years were catching up with Jack Nicklaus. Was there one more magical moment left in his storybook career on one of the game's greatest stages?
When I first really understood what Augusta really meant, it was in '86. I was 10 years old. I was glued to the TV set and watching the drama unfold.
But it wasn't supposed to happen. Certainly not at Augusta. The whispers were getting louder. Jack Nicklaus's spectacular career was in decline. Sure, he had won 2 majors in 1980 at the age of 40. But his game was now showing some serious rust.
You came to that age when suddenly you're no longer the strong youth that you were, and the vigor comes only occasionally. But Augusta always got his juices going.
The 50th Masters was supposed to be about the stars of the present, about players like Greg Norman, Seve Ballesteros, and Tom Kite, not about the past. The aging 5-time Masters champion was even starting to doubt himself.
Last major I'd won was in 1980, and I'd sort of, unfortunately, gotten used to not playing that well in the majors.
After a slow start, Jack steadily crept up the leaderboard. He was only 4 shots behind Norman going into the final round. Nicklaus knew exactly what he had to do on Sunday to win.
My son Steve called me in the morning, and he says, well, what do you think, Pops? And well, I said, I think 66 to tie, 65 to win. So he says, go shoot it.
Some guys are thinking surviving, coming down the stretch at Augusta. A guy like Jack thinks about what I can do to win.
On the second 9, the Bear was golden on the greens.
3 birdies in a row for Nicklaus.
Using his oversized putter, Nicklaus drained an eagle on 15.
There's life in the old Bear yet.
Almost aced the 16th.
My oldest son, Jackie, was caddying for me. Jackie says, be the right club. I said, it is. I mean, very matter of fact, because I knew that I hit the ball exactly where I wanted to hit it.
And he capped his remarkable charge at 17.
Yes, sir!
For the first time, I was in the lead of the golf tournament.
Jack turned out to be clairvoyant. finishing with the 65 that he predicted would win him his 6th green jacket at the age of 46.
People didn't expect me to win. The players weren't scared of me anymore. They didn't expect me to win, and I won. That was very, very special.
And there he was again. And we thought we'd already said goodbye to him. And then we had to welcome him back again.
To have all those bad experiences over the past few years put aside, it was like he just put a flashback to back when he was in his 20s and 30s.
It was extraordinary, and it was great, and that's why we watch. And that's why we do it.
It was like the reconfirmation, I'm the greatest. Don't forget that. And that moment made it impossible to ever forget that Jack Nicklaus was the greatest golfer who ever lived.
The countdown of Golf Digest's 10 defining moments returns after this message and a word from your local station. Welcome back to Golf Digest's 10 defining moments. Here's a look at a few more moments that just missed our countdown.
Byron Nelson in 1945 was, for that year for sure, was the greatest golfer ever lived.
He did what seemed absolutely impossible. Lord Byron Nelson ruled over the PGA Tour in 1945, capturing 18 tournaments during the year, 11 in a row.
Byron's streak has got to be, career-wise, one of the greatest accomplishments in the history of golf.
The 1962 U.S. Open at Oakmont was supposed to be all about Arnold Palmer, but rookie Jack Nicklaus had other ideas, defeating the King on his home turf in a playoff for his first professional victory and the first of his 18 professional majors. 21-year-old Nancy Lopez got used to smiling a lot in 1978. She burst onto the LPGA Tour with a record 5 consecutive victories and gave women's golf an important shot in the arm.
She came out there, and she not only was a great, great golfer, but she was so likable. People just fell in love with Nancy Lopez.
In April, readers of Golf Digest were asked to write what they thought was the #1 defining moment of all time. And of the more than 5,000 entries, only one was lucky enough to win a trip for 2 to this year's Ryder Cup at the Belfry in England. Our congratulations to Harry Hoover of, fittingly, Pinehurst, North Carolina. Well, at its very core, golf is about the pursuit of perfection. Very few have worked harder to achieve that goal than Ben Hogan. Not even a near-fatal automobile accident could stop his relentless pursuit of the flawless swing. In fact, the near-death experience inspired the greatest moment of his career and perhaps the greatest comeback in golf history.
When you looked into Hogan's eyes, you saw the look of a man possessed, a man obsessed, a man single-minded, a man who had his mind set on only one thing, and it was golf, and it was hitting a golf ball perfectly.
But on February 2nd, 1949, the eyes that Hogan used so effectively to deconstruct a golf course or to intimidate an opponent were put to a very different kind of test. Hogan was driving with his wife on a foggy 2-lane Texas highway when their car was struck head-on by a Greyhound bus.
He had a busted hip, and he had punctured everything and broken ribs, and his legs were battered and probably had every right to die, but he was saved and determined to come back and play golf again.
Doctors weren't sure he would walk again, let alone play golf. For a man who grew up dirt poor and struggled for years on the PGA Tour, this was just one more obstacle to overcome.
I don't think anybody expected Ben to come back from that accident, except Ben.
Just 11 months later, Hogan was back on the tour. With severely swollen legs and a shorter swing, Hogan knew he had only enough energy left in his legs to focus on the majors.
It was his total commitment. I mean, that's always the word I think is the best word. It's his commitment to the game.
A very determined person, and a man who also had a phenomenal work ethic and basically lived for the game of golf.
After a 4th-place finish at the Masters, Hogan was ready for the 1950 U.S. Open. With heavily bandaged legs, he was in contention going into the closing rounds at Merion. but his stamina was an issue. Back then, the final 36 holes were played on the same day.
If you had asked Ben Hogan to just go out and start on the first tee at Merion and just walk the 18 holes, that was a difficult thing for him to do.
After surging to a 3-shot lead, things started unraveling for the Hawk on the final 9. It looked as though Hogan finally had run out of magic. Needing a par on the last hole to force a playoff, Hogan nailed a 1-iron approach shot that helped save that par, and he lived to play another day. Hogan was reinvigorated after soaking his weary legs overnight. He shot a blistering 69 on Sunday to beat Lloyd Mangrum and George Fazio to win his second U.S. Open.
Of all of his accomplishments, that's probably the grandest and the most defining.
Golf professionals every day are out there pushing themselves to the outer limits of their expectation. That's what they do. Here's a man who did it and achieved it. His star will always shine bright.
But Ben Hogan wasn't through winning major championships. He'd go on to take 5 more, including 3 consecutive, the Masters and the U.S. and British Opens, all in the same year, 1953. Our countdown continues right after this. Welcome back. It's every caddy's dream to play and actually win the big tournament at the course where they've lugged heavy bags all summer long. But these dreams rarely come true, except for the fairy tale of Francis Ouimet. He's seldom listed among the game's greatest names, but his shocking U.S. Open victory helped put golf on the map. Even if you had seen what Francis Ouimet accomplished almost 90 years ago, you still might not have believed it.
If you had sent this script on the 1913 Open to Hollywood today, they would dismiss it. They would say, this is too much of a fantasy story.
Golf in America in 1913 certainly wasn't for the common man.
It really was a backwater sport for the very wealthy. It was not a game of the masses. It was not a popular sport at that time. All the best players were from Great Britain.
20-year-old Francis Ouimet was just your average American kid who taught himself the game. He grew up across the street from the country club in Brookline, Massachusetts, the site of the 1913 Open.
A hometown kid, a working kid, holding down a job, having to get permission from his boss to even play in the event, and he goes out and he beats the best players in the world.
The field was stacked with the British stars of the day. 5-time British Open winner Harry Vardon and the powerful Ted Ray. But Ouimet never backed down and battled his way into a playoff with Vardon and Ray.
He goes into an 18-hole playoff and beats these two guys by 5 shots to 6 shots. Only the second American to win our championship. Probably the biggest day that will ever happen in golf.
The nearest thing I can think of would be for an amateur to come off the streets of East L.A. and to beat Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson in a playoff for the U.S. Open, a player you'd never heard of until that moment. It was a phenomenal thing, and it completely altered the landscape of American golf.
When we come back, Golf Digest #1, defining moment. Welcome back, everyone, as we near the climax of our countdown of Golf Digest's 10 defining moments. Well, Tiger Woods has a simple goal: to win more major championships than any player who has ever lived. Anything seems possible these days after the way he's performed in the last 4 majors. No one has ever held all 4 professional majors at one time, and there's been a lot of debate over what to call it. But one thing's for certain: it's one of sport's most remarkable achievements.
The fear begins when they step on the first tee with him, because they know that they have to be at their best in order to beat him.
And they look at him, and they want to look at him in the eye, and they diminish. They wilt somehow.
He believes he can win just as I thought I could win, and the other guys think he's going to win.
There's a bigger gap between Tiger and the rest of the field than there's ever been in the history of golf.
Tearing Apart Pebble Beach was incredible. I mean, I've won there, and it's a heck of a golf course, and shooting the score he shot there. The way he was driving the ball there was just unbelievable, and that was some performance.
There were no weaknesses in it. You've never seen golf like that. You never see it again. I'm not sure Tiger can play any better than he did that week.
Mind-boggling to all of us to see somebody just totally dominate the rest of the field as much as he did.
The remarkable thing about that championship, he never went in one single fairway bunker during the whole event, which is amazing.
I knew that if I won the tournament, yeah, I'd win the tournament, but I also would complete my career Grand Slam.
The first tee of the last round, and he meandered over to a friend of his, and he said, "It's over. They can't beat me." He knew. There are ghosts at St. Andrews, and it seemed that Tiger was rocking right in the midst of them.
Those two tournaments are just phenomenal. I mean, you just don't have tournaments like that, and particularly at those places.
The one that most impressed me was the PGA, hands down. Because here he was playing against a very capable player, Bob May, but not that well known. People would say it was Tiger Woods' tournament to lose.
To win the PGA the way he did, going head-to-head with a guy that stood up there and make the putts when he had to. Making the putt at 18, that was not an easy putt. You know, he's got to make this or it's over.
And we go for a playoff.
The shots that he performed coming down the stretch and ending the playoff was an exclamation point on what an extraordinary athlete he is.
To hold all 4 major championships at the same time, I think, would be a nice problem to have.
He did what he had to do. Finished the game strong, and the other guys faltered down the stretch, and he was there.
There it is, as grand as it gets.
I don't care what you call it. It's the best feat that I've ever seen in the sport.
His mental game, before it's all said and done, may rival Jack's. And to me, that's what he's beating these guys with now.
He's dominated the sport more than anybody that's ever lived. There's never been anybody that's dominated golf like Tiger Woods.
Golf has a 500-year-old history. And for the first time in its history, it has the most recognizable athlete on the planet.
I think that the world is recognizing him as probably one of the greatest athletes that we have ever seen. We can talk about all the great athletes of all time, but Tiger Woods will be one of those people.
And finally, we've reached Golf Digest's #1 defining moment. Bobby Jones was many things: a lawyer, a gracious gentleman, and a golfing genius who set out to accomplish what many thought was impossible, winning all 4 majors in a single year. In 1930, America was looking for a larger-than-life hero, anything to help people forget, at least temporarily, the depths of the Depression.
America really needed something to distract it from its miseries, and Jones was the opportune person for that moment.
By the time he was 28, Bobby Jones had already won 9 majors. He was golf's answer to Babe Ruth. 18-year-old Charlie Seaver played around with Jones while he was tuning up for the 1929 U.S. Amateur.
Enjoyed every minute of it and got to watch the very best player in the world. He was just like a beautiful dancer, making his moves, his pivot, his backswing, starting his downswing, and doing all the little things that you need to do at the right time and in the right way.
Talent was never an issue for Bobby Jones, who was the game's first true child prodigy. But as his fame grew, Jones felt increasingly uncomfortable with the pressure that came with it.
His nerves were worn raw. He couldn't keep food down at all, and it was not unusual for Jones to lose 20 pounds in a 1-week period because of that.
Despite the toll of tournament golf, Jones set a lofty goal in 1930, one that many thought was unattainable. Capturing all 4 majors in a single year, Jones wanted to win the Grand Slam. First up was the British Amateur at St. Andrews, an event Jones had never won, but he managed a victory in what he called the most grueling ordeal of his career.
Once he got over the British Amateur, I think he realized then that it was within grasp that he could do it.
The British Open was just 2 weeks later. Even though he was trailing going into the final round, he managed a 2-shot victory and claimed his 3rd claret jug. Upon returning home, the Atlanta native was given a hero's welcome, as well as his 2nd New York ticker tape parade, before heading off to Minnesota for the U.S. Open.
The expectation was that Jones was going to win all 4. They wanted him to win all 4. They almost expected him to win all 4. And Jones was acutely aware of what people expected of him. This was not an easy thing for him to handle.
Under broiling temperatures, Jones's game heated up. He capped off his 3rd straight major with a 40-foot birdie putt on the final hole. But the pressure was clearly weighing on Jones. He was now under the care of 2 doctors.
The Bobby Jones who couldn't sleep, the Bobby Jones who trembled, the Bobby Jones who couldn't eat because he was so sick with worry. When the bell rang, he would suddenly be transformed.
The final major, the U.S. Amateur, was being played at Marion, where Jones first burst onto the amateur scene at the age of 14. Jones was mobbed and had to be protected by Marines. But he couldn't be stopped, and the Grand Slam was finally his.
I knew that I was really witnessing a spectacle. There isn't any doubt about that.
But this Harvard graduate now had other priorities. His family, his law firm, and golf was now a distant 3rd. Bobby Jones, the world's most famous athlete at the time, walked away from the game he loved at the age of 28.
He had the opportunity to be on the world stage. He communicated what the game was all about. I mean, he had a lot to do with furthering the traditions of the game, and his impact on the game was very special.
Bob Jones's Grand Slam in 1930 was golf's golden moment in sports' golden decade.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed this magical journey of comebacks and arrivals, heroes and champions. For all of us at CBS Sports, thanks for celebrating with us. Golf Digest's 10 defining moments. More on these and other moments that didn't make the top 10, check out the July issue of Golf Digest or log on to golfdigest.com. Coming up next, it's live coverage of the Memorial from Muirfield Village on CBS.